Hey guys, Old Guy Gaming here, back again with another MTG Arena video, and tonight we're going to start something a little different with some assistance from my good friend Sean Dorsey. Sean, how are you doing, my friend?
Doing very well. How you doing, Ed?
Good. So Sean and I, we do a podcast together outside of the MTG Arena world, and if you're interested in X-Wing, I'd suggest checking out the Lack of Focus podcast, where you can hear Sean, myself, and our good friend Chris Sheriff and my buddy Chad chat about X-Wing. So cheap little plug there. But so tonight, Sean's been kicking around this idea for quite some time, and I really like it, and we're going to go ahead and give this one a try. Showing the evolution of a deck before it gets into a finished stage, and seeing how the playtesting works. And Sean is a much better Magic player than I am. So he is going to kind of help me build a mono white deck. It's one of the decks I want to kind of build into. So Sean wanted to test out the red deck, and he started off with the base of the red deck win video that we just did last week, and made some modifications. So Sean, I'm going to go ahead and pull. Oh, one other thing I should mention: Sean is not on camera tonight, and since we have lost an internet great this week, Grumpy Cat, after 7 years, has passed away. So Sean is going to be playing the role of Grumpy Cat for his visualization for tonight. So everyone, pour one out for old Grumpy Cat for that. So anyway, so Sean, you wanted to start with the red deck wins. Why don't you kind of discuss a bit of the deck? And you did make some changes, and there were some reasons for it. So why don't you go ahead and into that?
Right. Okay. So the concept of the deck, of course, is the concept that you showed earlier this week, I believe, which actually is a great base to start with. And I didn't make many modifications with it right away because I wanted to see how just one simple change, how much it actually changes the deck. And so I'll go through the deck with everybody. Ed, do you have the visual for that?
I have the deck up. We are looking at it as we speak.
Wait. So it's a basic red deck wins. There's a couple things that I'm going to change over time. I just want to play it and see how it works. But we start with the Fanatical Firebrands. I dropped from 4 to 3, and one of the reasons is I actually hate this card. This is like, it's a card that is a necessity, but if I could find something else to put in for it, I would. It's just 1 damage or 1, and it's a great card if you're up against green, mono green, if they're running Llanowar Elves, but what I'm finding is most people that are running mono green are not really running Llanowar. They're running more of the 2-drop 1/3 card that does the same thing.
Druid of the Cow.
Yeah, Druid of the Cow. And that's the thing for me, is that this card here is kind of losing its ability. It's good if you're playing against any deck that has the afterlife, just because you can ping the flyers, things like that. But once again, it's a staple, and we're going to see it for a long time, or at least until something comes out, or until I try something different that'll take it out. So I dropped that from 4 to 3.
Do you mind if I speak on him real quick? Just one minor thing. First of all, I love the Goblin Pirate. I think he's a great. One of the things I like about that specific card is it's a pace setter. Like, you drop that 1 mana, you throw for that Firebrand out, and you hit him in the face for 1. You're like, welcome, you're playing against a red deck.
Right, and that's a great point. Now, I will say, against black or against red, it's kind of a card. And here's the thing. So when I play black deck, so if I'm playing any type of black deck, I'm going to make sure I have the -2/-2 gain 2 life in every one, at least 3 of them, because
that would be a moment of craving.
Yes. And I think it's the best card for your counter against Fanatical Firebrand, along with Shock if you're playing a red deck. He is a great, like you said, it is actually a tempo setter card. But in today's Magic, if you're playing today's Magic, it's a little more difficult. It's just that's just how I see it. But like I said, it's a staple card. You're not going to get around it. It's great against the blue flyer deck if they put out a Terramander.
Oh God, yeah.
It's a great second. If you're on the draw, it's great. I love playing against blue decks when you're on the draw and have 2 Fanatical Firebrands in hand, because you're going to get 2 1-drops in the first 2 turns, and you can just ping them right off the board. You don't even have to think about it; they're just off the board. The big issue, though, is if you're up against blue with this deck, or any deck like this, you have basically 2 turns to try to set your board and try to keep momentum going, and then throwing things away to try to get the cancels out of their hands. So Fanatical Firebrand is good. It has a great purpose, and it is definitely a staple. It's just,
if you had a better 1-drop, you'd take it. Is what
if I had a better 1-drop, I would take it. And there are a couple cards. Dual Shot's one that I would potentially put in its place because it's doing the exact same thing. But you can do 2 creatures with that, or that's just the concept that I have with that. I don't want to get too much.
Yeah, I was gonna say that sounds like further down the road kind of stuff. All right, second card in the 1-drop slot, G2 Lava Runner.
G2 Lava Runner. There's no choice. You have to have this card in these decks. I think it's one of the best 1-drop cards in the game, just because it's also a tempo setter. If turn one shock, turn 2 shock, get 2's on board, or turn 1 shock, turn 2 shock, get 2, they're already down 6 points potentially turn 2, and if they're running slower decks, that's a tough thing for them to keep up with, especially with lightning strikes and other things. So get 2's absolute just like shock is, just like lightning strike.
So he is also a trigger for Wizard's Lightning.
Absolutely, and that's another big thing too. Which, if they had another 1 mana cost good wizard, Fanatical would probably go, just because the Wizard Lightnings are so good at one mana cost.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
Get you 4 shocks. We don't need to go into shock.
Right.
4 lightning strikes, and I actually use those differently than other people. A lot of times, I'll watch people with red decks try to burn creatures off the board with shocks and lightning strikes, and it all depends on what I have in hand, of course. But my lightning strikes and shocks, I'm actually trying to use them as triggers for light at the stage or skewer the critics, and they're just great especially if you don't have a G2 out, or you don't have the Fanatical Firebrand out turn 2, or they burn it off or whatever. And then, of course, it's also the pick-me-up for the Runaway Steamkin. So,
of course.
So 3 Runaway Steamkins, that's the other change that I made. Once again, not one of my favorite cards in the game, but it is a necessity at this point. Steamkins are a pain, because my thing about Steamkins are, once again, it goes against the -2/-2s, cast downs, things like that can easily take them off the board. I do like it if you can ramp them up to 4, because or you get them up to the 3+1/+1 counters, because of the extra mana that you get from them. And a lot of times I'll burn it before I attack, just to try to do other things. So
I do wish you could take those tokens off one by one, as opposed to, that's the only thing that kind of drives me nuts about that card, is that you have to remove all 3 at the same time.
Right, but the advantage of that, though, Ed, is, think about this. So let's say you had a shock and a lightning strike in hand that you want to throw at someone's face, or take a creature off the board if that's your play with those. Is you burn the Steamkin, get it down to 1, and you're getting 2 back right away because of the fact you're utilizing it. So, not a bad card. It's one of those that just, I've had a lot of games where if you're not, if it comes out and then you're at an empty hand, which a lot of times happens in red deck, you're empty-handed. Next thing you know, you're drawing land, and now the Steamkin is just a 1/1, and there's nothing you can do.
Yep.
So a little value loss, in my opinion, with Steamkin, for that fact, because really with red deck you're emptying your hand pretty fast.
Yes.
The change that I have from Ed's deck is the Flame of Kill. This card to me is so good, and the reason why it is because once you burn through your hand, you play it, you discard your hand. The next turn, you have 3 cards in hand. That is a great value for 2 mana, in my opinion. And then, of course, if you draw, let's just say you drew a lightning strike and a shock out of those 3 cards that are coming to you, then when it gets to 3, it's if a red source you control would deal a damage to a permanent or player this turn, it deals that much damage plus 2. Now that's cumulative. So what I mean by that is, if I'm able to play a shock, instead of 2 damage, it's 4 damage. A lightning strike is 5 damage. Wizard's lightning is 5 damage. Skewer the city is 5 damage. Oh my gosh! I actually won a game. I was trying this out today because I knew we were going to do this tonight, and I won a game because of that. Because I drew a lightning strike and I drew a shock, and it was enough damage. That was 9 damage, and that was enough damage. I was playing against a blue deck, and he had played his hand empty because I like to do this in the game where I think I had 6 mana or 7 mana on the board, and I played a card forcing him to cancel. It was the Chain Whirler, forcing him to cancel it, and then I played the Kelp ticked up, and then I had the Lightning Strike and Shock in hand, which did the 9 damage to kill him. And I think he had 8 health left, and he was kind of a cocky guy where he was doing the good game thing because he probably had something in hand, and then I burned him off the board with that because Kelp had ticked up and gave me the +2. So
yeah, that's where some of the folks want to they're looking forward to having chat in the game. I'm not, because there are jerks on the internet, and I think that is opening a door that I don't think Wizards really can close after they've done it.
Right. And I had a game today where a guy would sit there and burn through his counter but not let it go to pass, and then he would play a card or do whatever, and then he would do it again. And those are the people that drive me crazy, are the ones that sit there, and I know what they're doing. They're trying to get you to quit.
Yeah, they're roping you. They want to see if they can get you to the end of time and make you quit the game.
Correct. By them slow playing. If you're an impatient, I have 3 computer monitors, so I usually have a video going, something else going, and
I'm eating lunch or whatever. Yeah,
exactly. So I can sit there and wait out anybody.
Well, the upside is, and I know we kind of talked about this off camera, they are coming out with for best of 3s, they are coming up with a clock. I wish they would translate over to best of 1s, because hopefully that would take some of those players out of the game. All right, so we're getting a little long on the description. Yeah. Let's kind of burn through the rest of the cards. We're into the 3 drops, I believe.
No, the Pyromancer is the next one.
Oh yeah, of course.
Which is a staple in Red Deck, and it's a good card. It's not other than when you're playing against another Red Deck and a Chain Whirler hits and you lose all your Pyromancers. Next is the Chain Whirler, Goblin Chain Whirler, 3 mana cost. Great card, 3. It's 3 life or 3 power toughness, first strike, and when it comes in, it does 1 damage. It's probably the best token wipe card that you will ever see in Red. Especially
all those afterlife tokens, those little spirits. Yeah. Whew, gone.
Yeah, and I don't think I would ever sideboard that card out for anything. I just don't think I would. It's too good of a card. Then I do 4 Light Up the Stage, which of course we're not really playing it for the 3 mana cost. We're playing it for the 1 mana after you've done damage to the opponent. One other thing I like about Light Up the Stage is I love Light Up the Stage, which then feeds into Flame of Kelm. So if you have something that can do damage, you've discarded your hand, you light up the stage, you have 2 cards in hand, after you draw the 2 cards, flame, then you're just light up, and you just have so many more options. It's so good.
Yep.
Next card is Skewer the Critics. Once again, great card. It's the lightning bolt of the set.
It's a lightning bolt in standard, which is just when you have 2, it's kind of gross.
Yeah, and I have 2 in the deck. Then 2 Wizards Lightning. I could trade these. I could go either way, where you do 4 Skewers or 4 Lightnings. You're kind of limited on Wizard Lightning because you're not playing enough Wizards, in my opinion. Having 8 with the Gitsus and the Viashinos, but you're kind of risking it if you're drawn on that backside. But it's still 3 damage for 3. Can't beat that. And then the card that I cannot, for the life of me, believe that was printed in any set ever.
She's so good. She's so good.
Artisan. This card, I won a game because I ultimated her spell. And not joking. The person had 5 life left. They didn't realize it. And I don't think they knew what the card did because they and I get it. I've had people where they've lost a game because they're attacking the thing. I've had people, every time you pull a loyalty counter off this thing, and there's other decks you could build with this that, pull counters, do different things, which someday I may look into, where you pull a counter off of her and it does damage automatically.
There's that card in black that allows you to pull counters off of planeswalkers and put them else. I think I had a video. I think I may have already recorded. It may be up by now, where I lost a game to someone who was running Super Friends and they had Nicol Bolas down, and they were trying to ultimate Nicol Bolas, so they cast that black spell, pulled all the tokens off their planeswalkers and put them onto Nicol Bolas. They ultimated him and he won. But when they pulled them off of Chandra, they also did damage to me in the process. So
right.
Yeah, it was really kind of funny.
Yeah, it's a crazy card. I like I said, I can't believe. And if you don't have 4 of them, you need to get 4 of them.
Yep. And just for the record, if you're especially if you're playing this in paper, they're like $5 a piece.
Yeah.
So
right now they're $5 a piece.
Yeah, right now at the time of recording, they are like $5 a piece. I have a sneaking suspicion they're going to go up. All right. So that is your deck. The deck that I wanted to work on was mono white.
Okay.
Which I think is going to be a great dichotomy because obviously I'm going to try to get into the Lifegain. Mostly I wanted to leverage Gideon from War of the Sparks. So let's kind of start with that.
Okay.
So, I misspelled Gideon. How do you like that? That's right, kids. You get to see how bad I am at spelling. So, Gideon Blackblade. I don't know how many belong in this deck.
So this is when I start to build decks, I start with 2. So if I'm unsure, but I want it in a deck, I go with 2.
Yep. Okay, fair point. And then I started thinking along the lines the standard mono white Lifegain. So you're looking at Healer's Hawks, for examples, dropping 4 of those in. You're looking at the what's the one I'm thinking of? Well, a Johnny's. You need a Johnny's.
So here. Okay, let me throw you this out. Okay, so you're looking at a Pridemate deck, right? You're looking at building Pridemate as your primary, right?
That is what I was thinking. Yeah.
Okay. So
that and the Lifegain, because there are plenty of things that you can get past, not even just against just specifically against your deck, but the ability to be able to just brush off attacks. Oh, that's great. You've got a Carnage Tyrant out. I don't care. I'm at 42 life.
Right. So with a Johnny, I think there's staples. If you're looking at a Johnny as kind of the primer for your deck. So you're gaining life to build up a Johnny, but you're also wanting to, build a deck that can win, So when I look at a Johnny, okay, you have to put 4 of them in, right?
Yep, off they
go. Now,
go.
everybody does Healer Hawk, and I know why, because it's a flyer and it's a fast way.
Yeah, it's got evasion and it's got the lifelink.
Correct, which is great. I also like Charm Stray.
I was going to ask about that.
So, War of the Spark brought out Charm Stray. So, lifelink, it's a creature cat. Lifelink, when Charm Stray enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on each other creature you control named Charm Stray. So, here's how I look at this. So, your slot for Healer Hawk can either be Healer Hawk or Charm Stray. Why Charm Stray? Well, Charm Stray is great because if you start with 2 of them in hand, you're going to have two. You're going to have a 1/1 and a 2/2. And then, actually, you're going to have 2 2/2s because it's whenever you put a +1 on each other creature. So it'll be a 1/1 and a 2/2 with lifelink for, on your second turn. If you play them with Healer's Hawk, and it's also a ground blocker, which is a great thing at the beginning of games with haste creatures.
Yes.
Most haste creatures are going to be on the ground unless you're playing against red-white. And the Charm Stray allows you to put an early blocker that you're gaining life that will also help you trigger Pridemate.
Yep, agreed. One of the other cards I like is the Leonin Vanguard. That is the... Oh, how do you like that? I misspelled that again, too. So the lead-in Vanguard is the one at the beginning of your combat turn. If you have 3 more creatures in play, lead-in gets a +1/+1 to end and will turn and you gain 1 life. The biggest it ever gets is to be a 2/2 on your turn, but it does trigger a Johnny's. But part of me thinks that I can drop that if we're running the Charmed Strays.
So that's an interesting thing. Because the Charmed Strays, as long as you have 2 or can get 2 out, Charmed Strays, in my opinion, are better than the Vanguards. But the Vanguard is so good. It is such a good card because now the trigger for Vanguard, though, attacking, it's always going to be, it's going to attack at 2 when it attacks. Or actually, it's actually if you control 3 or more creatures. So
yeah, so you need to have that 3rd creature for that trigger to happen.
Right, which is why I'm with you on that. That I would go with to start with. I would go with the Stray Cat, just because you're getting a lifelink creature that can help another creature potentially as you play more.
Right, and effectively it could do the same thing that the Vanguard, but I want to keep that card in my back pocket. So you know what? I'm going to drop those onto the sideboard and just leave them there.
Right.
For the moment. So, other things that I like, I think, without question, you have to go with the Resplendent Angel.
Yep. And you want 4 if you have 4.
I have all 4, and off they go.
Yep.
Just because you are building a Lifegain deck, once you get to that point where you're gaining 5 life on a fairly regular basis, plus she can trigger her own ability if you have the mana, and you're generating those 4/4 white angels, absolutely a must in a mono white Lifegain deck.
Absolutely. Another card there's 2 other cards that I like, and I always put, and I never put more. I see a lot of people with 3 or 4 of them in, but a Johnny's Welcome just because it keeps you going.
Yep. So you're suggesting 2 to start?
Always, yeah, no more than 2. Because the other 2 you're going to fill in. And I apologize to people. I don't think the clearest always, so I might forget some things. But Fountain of Renewal, I put 2 Fountain of Renewals in also.
Yep, I like the way you think. You and I are on the same page on this.
Yep. The reason why isn't for the life game as much as it's at least 2 card draw in your deck.
So we're packing on some creatures here. What else are we looking at? Because I like to obviously
Dauntless Bodyguard.
Okay, and that's to protect the Johnnies, of course.
It's to protect whatever you need to protect. You can use it to protect a Johnny early on. It'll also protect your 3/3 flyer that creates angels, and it actually does a lot for you.
So are we talking 2 or 4 of those?
I start with 2, and then go from, if you need more, then you change it out. Then you take something else out and add more bodyguards.
Okay. All right, anything else you can think of creature-wise?
So it all depends on what your end goal is. Do you want a game winner that is outside of the of the Resplendent Angel? So that's the big question. This is what eats at me when I'm building. But Lyra Dawnbringer.
Yep, already had it pulled up.
Yep. So two Lyras. It has flying, first strike, lifelink. That is great. 5/5 for 5. But what it helps is that if you do get any angels out and they stay on the board, your angels are now +1 with lifelink. So now you're just triggering everything, with that.
All right, so we are going to get some creatures on the board that we're not going to want to see. So there's a couple of things that I usually consider staples in mono white decks. Conclave Tribunal.
Oh, yeah. So this is where I don't like that card for a reason. So there's 2 cards that I don't like in the game. One is that one. Not because it's not a good card. It's a card that triggers off Convoke. Great. It's good to have. You can, if you don't have enough mana, you can use your creatures. Awesome. Pyromancer's Cage is the other one. Simply because, once again, those are cards that what's the value? You're getting a 1-for-1, right? So you're taking something off the board, getting 1-for-1. What I really love is the Ixalan's binding, because it causes a freeze in the game for an opponent. So if it's a heavy deck, and with Planeswalker decks becoming really prominent, I love Ixalan's binding in today's meta, because if I take a Nicol Bolas off the board, you can't put another one out unless you get rid of it.
Yeah, and I can see the argument for that one too. I absolutely agree.
I understand Conclave Tribunal, and I know it's a very popular card, but with the Tribunal, the risk that you have, or the risk that you're taking, is that, you know, it can get popped off the board, especially if you're playing against green, which Ixalan Binding can also, I get that, but, you know, blue and green has a tendency to knock them off the board. I just love binding because it forces the opponent to have to play around it. When they know that you have it, they have to think now, what do I want to put out there? What's the value of card I'm putting out there that's going to get taken off the board, and then freeze all the rest of them that are in my deck? That's just how I look at that one.
So the other thing that I usually put in a deck is Seal Away. However, the problems that I have with Steal Away are that you need to actually wait for them to either A, tap a creature, or B, attack with it that's causing it to tap. And you have the downside of creatures with Vigilance. You can't seal away them. So War of the Spark brought out another great card, Prison Realm. Effectively doing the same thing as Ixalan's Binding, but you also get the ability to scry. So you're basically spending an additional mana to scry. What are your thoughts on that?
I do like that card, actually. I do think it's a good card. And that's, you know, one, especially right now. You know, it's, once again, though, the nice thing about Seal Away compared to is Seal Away works on their turn.
Yes.
Which is extremely important for Seal Away. Prison Realm enters the battlefield, exile target creature, planeswalker, and opponent controls until Prison Realm leaves the battlefield. When Prison Realm enters the battlefield, scry 1.
Yeah, so the Planeswalker part to that is the part that I like as well. I forgot to mention that.
Right. And, you know, if they're playing Planeswalkers, that'll bounce it. It doesn't matter. No matter which one of these you're playing, doesn't matter. I like to, you know, one of the things that I like to do is I'll only play 4 of those types of cards. If I'm going to play another type of card that does something to the opponent's creatures, is I'll play Luminous Bonds, and not because, you know, to me, Luminous Bonds has great value because if you put it on a creature that does nothing but attack and it's a, you know, 5/5 type creature, Luminous Bonds is incredible because they're done. You know, that creature's done, it's out of the game, and chances are they're not going to try to bust it off because it's not a, you know, they probably have something else in their deck that's better than what you're already doing it with. But that's a good card. This is all flavor, Ed. I think when you're getting into these types of cards, it's flavor. It's what your style of play is. If you're a player that plays, if you're going to play fewer than 24 mana, go with Conclave Tribunal. Because if you're mana screwed and you have 2 on the board with 2 creatures, Tribunal works for you.
Well, that's probably another good point, because currently right now, obviously the auto deck generator creates a starts you off with 24 lands.
Right.
I feel like we're really low on the mana curve. Like, a vast majority of the stuff that we're sitting in here is in the 1 and 2 drops. So I tend to drop that down to like 20 to 21 lands in those instances.
Right. Which then Tribunal is where you want to be.
Okay, so let's go ahead and after all that discussion, we will go with Conclave Tribunal anyway.
And what I would do, this is how I would do it, Ed, is I would put in 3 Tribunals, and then I would put in 1 Ixalan's Binding.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yep. Just so you have, you know, whether you may never draw it, I get that. But if you do have it in hand, that's your ace in the hole against the Nicol Bolas or some powerful thing that they're going to put on the board.
All right, well, we got 9 cards left to fill out. What are you thinking?
I've always put 2 Cleansing Novas in my white deck. And it's not fully for the creatures, but it's against those artifacts and enchantments.
Yep.
So
What do you feel about Settle the Wreckages?
Yep, if they're milling you, or if you're playing against another white deck that's enchanting all your creatures, well, this takes care of that. And then if you're up against a red deck or some other type of deck that has a pretty wide board, well, you can clear the board.
So 2 Cleansing Novas.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on Settle the Wreckage?
If I'm going to do that, I'm going to do 2 Settle the Wreckage.
So 2 Settle the Wreckage and 2 Cleansing Novas. That gives us 5 cards to go.
Yeah. So now you have some control. So you have some control. So you have. Did you put 3 Conclaves in 1?
Yeah. So I'll go ahead and review. So we're looking at 4 Charmed Cats, 2 Dauntless Bodyguards, 4 Healer's Hawks, 2 Johnny's Welcomes, 2 Fountain of Renewals, the 4 Johnny's Pridemates, 4 Resplendent Angels, 2 Gideon Blackblades, 3 Conclave Tribunals with 1 Ixalan Binding, 2 Settle the Wreckage, 2 Cleansing Novas, and 2 Lyra Dawnbringers, and 21 mana.
Okay. So another card that I put in, because now you're kind of playing an aggro deck here. It's a fast aggro style deck, correct? 2 of Johnny Last Stands if you have them. And this is actually one of my favorite cards against those people that are playing blue-black, because of the secondary effect on this. When a spell or ability an opponent control causes you to discard this card, if you control planes, create a 4/4 white avatar creature token with flying. And then it also is, whenever a creature or planeswalker you control dies, you may sacrifice a Johnny's Last Stand. If you do, create a 4/4 white avatar creature token with flying. Now, it's not an angel, I get that.
But still.
Right. So if you get this out, it's a 4-drop, so it's a little bit later in the game when you're playing it. But let's just say one of your, they got to take a hawk off the board. Well, now they have to choose. Once again, you've created a choice for them. Are they going to take that hawk off the board to allow you to sacrifice this to put a bigger creature on the board?
Okay, I could see that.
Yeah, it's forcing people to make decisions. Decisions they don't want.
3 cards remaining.
Now this is where it gets into an interesting. To me, this is where it gets interesting, and this is where I start looking at instants. So
there's a couple of choices we can go through on that.
Yep. So you could look at, do you want to offensively, or not offensively, do you want to be defensive and save creatures, or do you want to be offensive and remove creatures? So, and this is where your playstyle comes into play. So am I going to do Gideon's Reproach so that I can knock creatures off the board when they're attacking or blocking? Or am I going to go, and I'm trying to think, I cannot remember the name, Sheltering Light, target creature gains indestructible. There's another one that makes all your creatures indestructible.
And it's Formation. What is it? F-O-R-M-E. I have it. Unbreakable Formation.
Yes.
Creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. Addendum: if you play the spell during your main phase, put a +1/+1 counter on each of those creatures, and they gain vigilance until end of turn.
Right.
Boom, boom, boom. 3 of those.
Yep.
All right, that's
Now, really quick, one other thing you might want to think about are and this is just for the conceptual thing, Revitalize and Ritual of Rejuvenations, just for life gain and card draw. So that would be the other slot those would go in.
Interesting that so Revitalize and Rejuvenation, they're the same casting cost.
No, Ritual is 3, Revitalize is 2.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put those in the sidebar for now.
Yep. But that's something you want to think about, because if you're able to get your Pride Mates going, those help the Pride Mates. So, it's dual effect, it's triple effect there for your gain life, potentially raising a Pride Mate and getting a card, which of course we all know card draw. A thinning deck is extremely important in Magic the Gathering.
Okay, so I'm going to build the deck. and save it. All right, so that was the deck building section. This one actually ran a little bit longer than I thought it was going to, so we're going to go ahead and call an end to the video on this one here, and then in the very next video, which we'll pick up right after we left off of this one, we're going to actually start doing some of the gameplay and tryouts on that one. So, Sean, thank you so much for helping me doing some deck building. I hope you guys found this this interesting, the thought process behind how Sean is building his deck, how I'm building mine, and the banter back and forth. So if you like the video, of course, like, subscribe, always helps out the channel. There's also a Patreon as well. Sean knows he's my Patreon. That is patreon.com/oldguygamingmtga. And until next video, guys, we shall see you in the arena. This video was brought to you in no small part by our patrons. If you would like to help out the channel, go to www.patreon.com/oldguygamingmtga, and thank you for your support.